Hey there! Welcome to this interactive explainer session. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us. Today, we are going to conquer relative clauses and commas together so you can completely ace your next writing exam. Think of me as your personal English teacher for the next few minutes. We're going to break down these tricky grammar rules into simple, digestible pieces, and I promise, by the time we're done, you're going to feel so confident. So let's just dive right into it. Here is our roadmap for today's masterclass. We'll kick things off with grammar roots, then compare essential versus non-essential clauses, and tackle those tricky pronouns and commas. After that, we'll fix up misplaced clauses, cover agreement and adverbs, and wrap it all up with a rapid-fire final exam. All right, part 1, grammar roots. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the rules, let's look at some really fascinating historical context. If you ever find yourself struggling with these rules, please don't worry. Relative clauses have actually been evolving since ancient Greek and Latin. English development has completely shifted their usage over centuries. So if it ever feels like you're untangling an ancient puzzle, well, you quite literally are. But today, we are going to make that modern-day structure crystal clear for you. Okay, moving right along to part 2, essential versus non-essential clauses. Let's lay down our foundation. The absolute golden rule of comma placement comes down to figuring out what is essential to a sentence and what is just, well, extra baggage. We have restrictive clauses, which are totally essential to the meaning of the sentence, and non-restrictive clauses, which are non-essential. Think of it this way. If you can pluck the clause out without destroying the core meaning of the sentence, it's not essential, and you absolutely must use commas to bracket it off. But if you need that clause to know exactly who or what we're talking about, it's essential. In that case, 0 commas. This next concept brilliantly illustrates why those tiny little commas matter so much. Think about these two sentences side by side. The first one says, "My brother who lives in Cardiff is much older than me," with no commas. This actually implies the speaker has multiple brothers and needs to specify exactly which brother they're talking about. The clause is essential. Now imagine the second one. "My brother, who lives in Cardiff, is much older than me." Because we used commas, the fact that he lives in Cardiff is just extra trivia. It means the speaker only has one brother. Isn't it crazy how one tiny punctuation mark can completely change your family tree? Which brings us to part 3, tricky pronouns and commas. So we've got our definitions down. Now let's talk about the actual words we use to build these clauses. Think of this as your mental checklist. Relative pronouns include who, whom, which, that, and whose. We use who and whom for people, which for things, and whose to show possession. Then we have relative adverbs, where for places, when for times, and why for reasons. Keeping this little list in the back of your mind is your first step to always choosing the right word. Let's simplify that dreaded who versus whom debate. It's actually a lot easier than it seems. Just follow these steps. First, find the subject of the clause. If the person is the one doing the action, use who. If the person is receiving the action or is the object of the clause, use whom. Just a quick teacher tip though, whom is definitely becoming less common in everyday informal English, but exams still love to test you on it. All right, pop quiz time. Let's do our first interactive review. I want you to pause the explainer right here and try to select whether that or which is the correct pronoun for this essential phrase. The shoes that or which she had on yesterday are brand new. Go ahead, take a second and make your choice. Okay, did you pick that? If you did, fantastic job. Traditional grammar rules tell us to use that for restrictive, essential clauses with no commas. Because that she had on yesterday tells us exactly which shoes we're talking about, it is absolutely essential. So we use that and no commas. You're doing amazing. All right, on to part 4, fixing misplaced and dangling clauses. Time to play grammar detective. We're going to fix some common traps where clauses get totally separated from their nouns. We call these misplaced or dangling clauses. You always want to treat your sentences like puzzle pieces. Here's your winning strategy. Identify the noun, find the relative clause, and make absolutely sure that clause is glued right next to the noun it's modifying. If you place a clause too far away, your reader is going to get so confused. For example, if you say, "I sold the car to a man which had a broken bumper," well, it sounds like the poor guy has a broken bumper, not the car. Always keep them close. If you dive into advanced grammar guides, you'll see that sometimes you actually have the option to drop the relative pronoun completely. It's like a secret shortcut. But There are very strict rules for when you can and can't do this, which we're going to practice right now. The golden rule here is all about subjects and objects. Let's look at this sentence, the assistant that we met. Here, we is the subject, making that the object. Because it's the object, you can totally drop it. The assistant we met. Smooth, right? But look at the second example. The assistant that helped us. In this case, that is the subject of the clause. It's the one doing the helping. You absolutely cannot drop it. So, if it's the subject, keep it. If it's the object, you can toss it. Next up, part 5, agreement, adverbs, and omissions. Before our final exam, let's tackle a trap that catches even advanced writers. It's forgetting subject-verb agreement right inside the relative clause itself. Take a look at this incorrect example. The kids who plays. Kids is plural, right? So the verb inside that clause has to be plural too. The correct sentence is, the kids who play with my daughter. Always, always check that inside verb. Keep up the great focus, we are almost there. All right, time for another interactive challenge. Let's use a real-world scenario for this one. Pause the explainer right now and figure out the correct relative adverb to fill in this blank. The restaurant blank we ate last night was excellent. I just know you nailed this one. The answer is where. Where is your go-to relative adverb anytime we are talking about a physical place, like a restaurant.
And finally, part 6, the rapid-fire final exam.
You have absorbed so much information today, and now it's time to put it all together. Challenge number 1. Pause the explainer and figure out exactly where the missing commas belong in this sentence. My daughter, who turns 4 tomorrow, is so funny. Did you find them? Excellent work. The fact that she turns 4 tomorrow is just extra, non-essential information, so it gets neatly bracketed by commas. The core sentence, my daughter is so funny, stands perfectly on its own. Let's hit one more fast-paced challenge. This one's a bit tricky. It has multiple errors. Pause the explainer and fix the missing punctuation here. The most expensive stamps, which are part of his great collection, are missing. All right. The answer is, the most expensive stamps, which are part of his great collection, are missing. Because that clause is just extra info, it has to be set off by commas. Fantastic job mastering these rules today. The next time you sit down to write an essay, just ask yourself this golden question. Can I remove this clause without changing the core meaning? If the answer is yes, bring in those commas. But it really makes you wonder, as language continues to evolve, will our rapid-fire digital communication eventually make the comma obsolete entirely, or will precision in punctuation become more vital than ever before? Something to think about. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.